Peter, many concerns, many questions tonight out of the White House, and we were seeing these pictures from the Situation Room where the president, along with the Secretary of Defense and the Joint Chief of Staff, as well as the foreign minister, I should say, but it's really the Secretary of State of the United States, in the moments previous to and during this mission. What more can we expect out of the White House?
Welcome to Dr. John Podcast. So this is happening right now. House Democrats are introducing formal impeachment articles with names on the record and forced votes, backed by specific documented charges, lies about war costs, DOJ perjury, billions hidden from Congress, and court orders defied so flagrantly that federal judges are threatening to arrest the Attorney General.
Well, we do know what's going to be interesting is that President Trump is scheduled to leave early next week for NATO, where he will come face to face with some of America's European allies. So this will obviously be at the top of that conversation. It comes just days after the president abruptly departed halfway through his visit with many other allies when he was in Canada as part of the G7 that was taking place there, the group of 7 leaders that were gathering together there. I'd want to give you some updates. We heard from the president moments ago. We are now hearing some of the reaction to the president's words.
And Trump knows how serious it is because he just admitted it himself. And the response from Donald Trump? Absolute, unhinged, panic. He went on Truth Social and started screaming about witch hunts and Democrat hoaxes. He was throwing accusations in every direction. But here is what is truly telling. Amid all the bluster and the rage, Trump admitted something that no president should ever have to admit.
U.S. President Donald Trump has warned House Republicans that failing to win the 2026 midterm elections would likely lead Democrats to impeach him. Speaking at a closed-door Republican retreat in Washington on Tuesday, Trump told lawmakers they must hold the House, saying Democrats will, quote, find a reason to impeach him if they retake control. Despite his recent military action in Venezuela, he pivoted to domestic politics by claiming credit for stock market gains while distancing himself from the recent inflation.
He looked at Republicans and told them, in so many words, that if they lose the midterms, impeachment is guaranteed. He said they have to win or he is done. Those words came out of his own mouth. He said the quiet part out loud. He admitted that the threat is real, that the evidence is there, and that his presidency is hanging by a thread that could snap at any moment.
Trump urged party unity and pressed lawmakers to sell his policies on healthcare, gender issues, and election integrity, while acknowledging that sitting presidents have lost House seats in every midterm since 2006. Republicans currently hold the House by 5 seats, a margin Trump called dangerously thin, with every seat up for grabs this November.
This is not a confident man. This is not a man who believes he has done nothing wrong. This is a man who sees the noose tightening and is desperately trying to rally his supporters to save him. So let us walk through exactly what is happening, why it is happening now, and why Trump is right to be terrified. The House Democrats who are leading this charge are not backbenchers making noise for attention. These are serious members of Congress who have been building a case methodically, piece by piece, documenting every violation, every lie, every abuse of power. Representatives like Hank Johnson and others have gone to the House floor. They have introduced articles. They have gathered votes. And according to reporting, more than 140 House members have already voted to advance impeachment articles. 140. That is not a fringe faction. That is a substantial portion of the House of Representatives saying, in effect, that this president has committed offenses that warrant removal from office. That is the kind of number that makes impeachment not just possible, but probable. That is the kind of number that turns a threat into a process. And what are these articles based on? They are based on evidence that is already in the public record, already documented by courts, already confirmed by government audits. They are not speculative. They are not hypothetical. They are grounded in things that have already happened and already been proven. Article 1 revolves around the Iran war cost lie. The Trump administration reported to Congress that military actions in Iran cost $8.2 billion. But when the Government Accountability Office conducted an audit, they found the actual number was $12.3 billion, $4.1 billion hidden, and not just hidden, actively concealed. Judge James Boasberg, the same federal judge we have been watching, documented that the Department of Justice deliberately presented false information to his court. He said it was perjury. He threatened arrest warrants for the officials responsible. That is not opinion. That is a federal judge stating on the record that the administration lied under oath. Article 2 is about war powers violations. The Constitution is clear on this. Congress declares war. The president does not get to unilaterally launch military operations without congressional authorization. But Trump did exactly that. He ordered military actions against Iran without going through the proper constitutional process. He bypassed Congress entirely. And Democrats are saying that is exactly the kind of abuse of power the impeachment clause was designed to address. Article 3 is contempt of court. Judge Boasberg told the Justice Department to stop lying and to comply with his orders. They did not stop. They kept defying him. They kept presenting false information. And Boasberg responded by saying, effectively, if this continues, I will issue arrest warrants. That is contempt. That is the executive branch deciding it does not have to follow what a federal judge says. And that is impeachable. Article 4 is obstruction of justice. There are outstanding questions about the Epstein files, about documents that were promised but never released, about information being hidden from Congress and the public. The pattern is consistent. When there is something that could expose wrongdoing, the administration buries it, stonewalls, and attacks anyone who asks questions. Article 5 is abuse of power more broadly. This covers the politicization of the Justice Department, the removal of prosecutors who refuse to be loyal to Trump personally, the appointment of unqualified loyalists to positions that require independence, the weaponization of federal law enforcement against political enemies. It is the same pattern that has been playing out for years, now documented and codified into articles of impeachment. These are not minor infractions. These are not policy disagreements dressed up as crimes. These are serious constitutional violations. These are the kinds of things that the founders explicitly listed as grounds for removing a president from office. And the case is not just being made by Democrats. It is being made by the courts. Judge Boasberg documented the perjury in writing. The Supreme Court has issued rulings limiting Trump's power. Federal judges have blocked illegal appointments. Prosecutors have resigned rather than participate in what they saw as political prosecutions. The institutions are pushing back, and now Congress is joining them. So here is where the math becomes brutal for Trump. In the House, Democrats control the chamber. They have the votes to impeach if they stay united. There might be some internal disagreements about exactly which articles to prioritize, but the votes are there. Impeachment in the House is not a question of if, it is a question of when. The Senate is where it gets complicated. To convict and remove a president, you need 67 votes. That is 2/3 of the Senate. Right now, the Senate is evenly split, 50 Democrats and 50 Republicans. That means to reach 67, you need all 50 Democrats plus 17 Republicans. 17 Republicans would have to look at the evidence, look at the documentation, and decide that Donald Trump has crossed the line so clearly that they are willing to vote to remove him from office. That is a high bar. But here is what is interesting. Trump himself seems to think it is possible. He is not telling Republicans to relax. He is not saying the Senate will protect him. He is telling them in no uncertain terms that they have to win the midterms or impeachment is coming. He is saying that if Republicans lose control of Congress, he is done. That is an admission. That is the President of the United States saying out loud that his continued presence in office depends entirely on his party winning elections. That is not the posture of someone who believes he is innocent. That is the posture of someone who knows the evidence is damning and is praying that the political math works out in his favor. And the betting markets seem to agree. According to reporting, the odds of Trump facing impeachment before the midterms are now at 67%. That is more likely than not. That is not wishful thinking from his opponents. That is serious money being placed on a serious probability. So why is this happening now? Why are Democrats moving forward with impeachment at this particular moment? The answer is that the evidence has reached a critical mass. You have Judge Boasberg documenting perjury. You have the GAO audit confirming billions in hidden costs. You have the Supreme Court limiting presidential power. You have prosecutors resigning in protest. You have the Epstein files raising questions about cover-ups. You have federal judges threatening contempt and arrest. All of these things have been building, and now they have become impossible to ignore. Democrats have been building this case methodically. They have been waiting for the moment when the evidence was overwhelming and the public was paying attention. That moment has arrived. The articles are being introduced, the votes are being held, the process is moving forward. And Trump's response has been pure panic. He is on Truth Social attacking the judges, attacking the Democrats, attacking anyone who threatens him. He is warning Republicans that their political survival is tied to his. He is telling them that if they do not win the midterms, everything falls apart. He is screaming into the void because he knows what is coming. The midterms are no longer just about which party controls Congress. They are about whether Donald Trump remains president. Trump himself has made that clear. He has said effectively that if Republicans lose, he gets impeached, convicted, and removed. He has made the midterms a referendum on his own survival. That changes everything about the political dynamics. For Republicans, the message is simple: win or your president is gone. For Democrats, the message is equally simple: win, and you can finally hold this president accountable for his crimes. The stakes have been raised to the highest possible level, and the timing matters. This is happening months before the midterms, which gives Democrats time to make the case to the public. They can run ads about the $12.3 billion in hidden war costs. They can point to Judge Boasberg's documentation of perjury. They can remind voters that federal judges are threatening to arrest the Attorney General. They can make impeachment a central issue in the campaign. That is a powerful message. It turns the midterms into something more than a typical election. It turns them into a judgment on whether the rule of law still matters. It forces voters to choose between a president who has been documented lying to courts and a Congress willing to hold him accountable. And the pressure on Republican senators is going to be intense. They are going to have to decide whether to vote to convict or to acquit. If they vote to convict, Trump's base will turn on them. They will face primary challenges. They will be branded traitors. If they vote to acquit, they are essentially saying that perjury, contempt of court, war powers violations, and obstruction of justice are not grounds for removing a president. They are saying that the rule of law does not apply to Donald Trump. That is a difficult position to defend to reasonable voters. The evidence makes it harder for them to vote to acquit. Judge Boasberg has written it all down. The GAO has published the audit. The Supreme Court has issued rulings. The prosecutors have resigned in protest. All of this is public. All of it is documented. Republican senators cannot pretend it does not exist. They cannot say there is no evidence. The evidence is overwhelming. So the question becomes whether 17 of them will have the courage to do what they know is right. And that is what Trump is worried about. That is why he is panicking. That is why he is telling Republicans they have to win the midterms. Because if they win, the political calculus changes. If they lose, the pressure to convict becomes almost impossible to resist. Let us talk about what actually triggered this escalation. The articles of impeachment are being introduced because the pattern of abuse has become undeniable. The Iran war cost lie is not a minor discrepancy. $4.1 billion is not a rounding error. The Trump administration deliberately hid that money from Congress and from the courts. That is fraud. That is perjury. That is impeachable. And Judge Boasberg caught them. He documented it. He said it was deliberate. He threatened arrest. That is not a partisan attack. That is a federal judge doing his job. The war powers violations are also significant. The Constitution gives Congress the power to declare war. The president does not get to decide on his own to launch military operations. Trump did exactly that. He bypassed Congress. He acted unilaterally. And Democrats are saying that is an abuse of power that warrants removal. The contempt of court charges are equally serious. When a federal judge issues an order, the executive branch is supposed to follow it. That is how the system works. The Trump administration has been ignoring court orders systematically, repeatedly, deliberately, and judges are responding by threatening arrest. That is not sustainable. That is not how a constitutional republic functions. The obstruction of justice allegations are about the cover-up, the Epstein files, the hidden documents, the stonewalling of Congress. It all points to a pattern. When there is something that could expose wrongdoing, the administration hides it, attacks anyone who asks questions, and tries to make the problem go away through sheer force of will. And the broader abuse of power allegations tie it all together. The politicization of the Justice Department, the removal of prosecutors who refuse to be loyal, the appointment of unqualified loyalists. It is all part of the same pattern. A president who believes he is above the law. A president who thinks the institutions of government exist to serve him, not the other way around. That is what impeachment is for. That is why the founders put it in the Constitution. They understood that there might come a time when a president would try to make himself above the law. They created impeachment as the remedy. And that remedy is being invoked now. It is not being invoked lightly. It is being invoked because the evidence is overwhelming. It is being invoked because the courts have documented the violations. It is being invoked because the system is breaking down. And something has to give. Trump knows this. That is why he is panicking. That is why he is on Truth Social attacking judges and Democrats. That is why he is telling Republicans they have to win the midterms. He knows that impeachment is no longer a distant threat. It is a process that is already moving. It is a train that has left the station, and he is desperately hoping that the midterms will derail it before it reaches its destination. So what happens next? The House will move forward with the articles. There will be hearings, there will be votes. The articles will likely pass. Then the process moves to the Senate. The Senate becomes a court of impeachment. The Chief Justice presides. House managers present the case. Trump's lawyers defend him. Senators listen. Senators deliberate. And then senators vote. 67 votes are needed to convict and remove. That means 17 Republicans have to break with Trump. That is a high number, but it is not impossible. It has happened before. Nixon faced that kind of pressure. He resigned before the votes were even taken because he knew the numbers were there. Trump is not going to resign. That is not his style. He is going to fight. He is going to attack. He is going to try to turn the process into a circus. But the evidence is the evidence. The courts have spoken. The audits have been done. The documents exist. And if the midterms go against him, if Democrats pick up seats, the pressure on those 17 Republicans becomes overwhelming. They will have to decide whether to save themselves politically or save the Constitution. They will have to decide whether to stand with a president who lied to courts and hid war costs or stand with the rule of law. That is the choice that is coming. That is the moment that is approaching. And Trump is terrified because he knows that 17 Republicans might just make the right choice. The betting markets say it is likely. The political dynamics say it is possible. The evidence says it is justified. And Trump's own panic says he knows it is real. So we are watching history unfold. We are watching a president who thought he was above the law finally being held accountable. We are watching the institutions push back. We are watching the constitutional process work, messy and chaotic as it is. This is not about partisan politics anymore. This is about whether the rule of law still exists in America. This is about whether a president can lie to courts, hide war costs, defy judges, and abuse power without consequence. And the answer that is emerging is no. No, he cannot. The House is moving. The courts have spoken. The evidence is documented. And Trump is panicking because he sees the end coming. He sees the walls closing in. He sees the moment when the system finally catches up with him. And that moment is now. That moment is here. The impeachment train has left the station, and there is no stopping it. Stay tuned.